Mercedes Mone is overrated. She's talentless. She can't wrestle, she doesn't have any charisma, and her titles are all meaningless. All of these are things that I would say if I were a geek. Despite having done nearly everything there is to do for a superstar in the sport of professional wrestling, Mercedes Mone seems to catch heat by just breathing in the wrong direction. It doesn't matter what she's doing, it doesn't matter who she's facing, it doesn't matter how well she may be doing in the ring. All of the focus is on this criticism that people have of her of not being worthy of her standing. And I want to be clear about this before we get too deep. If your issue is with the style of her wrestling or her promos or several different factors that are inherently subjective, this video is not for you, and it's not necessarily against your critiques. Everyone is allowed to believe and like the things that they like in pro wrestling and hate the things that they don't. That's why being a pro wrestling fan is so dope. You can listen to the music the way you want to listen to. You can watch the type of wrestling you want to watch. But when you look at these critiques layered with other ones, like the idea that Mercedes doesn't whoop people over, or that Mercedes is selfish, or that Mercedes betrayed WWE, which is one that I've heard one too many times for me, and part of the reason I am making this video. Well, I'm going to talk about all that much more right here in this video, so sit back, relax, be sure to smash that thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm Big Ohm for Real Take Wrestling. Let's dive right in. Mercedes Mone changed the entire landscape and trajectory of professional wrestling back in 2015 when she was on the rise in NXT. Of course, there were several talent alongside her, such as Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, Paige, but Mercedes was always viewed as arguably the most versatile amongst that group of the four horsewomen. She was always the one that you pointed to when you thought of the charisma, when you thought of the in-ring prowess, when you thought of everything that you want out of a premier talent. I think she was probably the best all-around act. And again, these things are subjective, but that was generally the consensus for a couple of years. You combine that with the fact that Mercedes, throughout her time in WWE, had been a part of some of the biggest matches in WWE history, the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, the amazing match that she had with Bianca Belair back at WrestleMania 37, and of course, arguably the best women's match in WWE history between herself and Bayley at NXT TakeOver 2015, there was really no argument to be made against that. You may have had a favorite wrestler, you may have had someone that you cheered for more, but Mercedes was generally considered to be a step above the cut. And all of this was true up until she left in 2022. And of course, according to the story, Mercedes and Naomi both left WWE, relinquishing their WWE Women's Tag Team Championship belts on John Laurinaitis' desk and leaving in very dramatic fashion after what can only be described as creative differences. And she was never seen again in WWE. She would later go on to dominate on the Indies. She would dominate in Japan and would go on to debut at AEW Dynamite Big Business in Boston at the TD Garden in February of 2024. And this is when I think everything changed. As we know, professional wrestling is a very tribal affair, especially online. You will always have the AEW fans who really want to cheer for AEW and rag on WWE, and vice versa. You will have WWE fans thirsty to hate on everything that is associated with AEW. And I think one of the biggest issues with Mercedes was getting caught up in this, because a lot of the same people who had the critiques that they have of Mercedes now weren't necessarily saying those same things when she was making history over on Monday nights. They weren't necessarily saying the same things when she was having kick-ass matches in NXT. They weren't necessarily saying those same things when she was blowing people's minds in the main event of WrestleMania. Instead, now, because she's in AEW, and also because of where she's positioned near the top of the card in AEW, having a presence dominating all over their television, it's going to lend itself to being a part of this more tribal, toxic discourse. And that is one of the major reasons why we have this. You combine this with the fact that Mercedes Mone is a woman, and a woman of color no less. So there's always going to be an over-indexed amount of hate that's going to come her way from a predominantly white fan base online. And again, this is not everybody, but the fact remains that a lot of the people that are hating on Mercedes are only doing so because she's not in WWE, and also because she's a very easy target because she's a woman. And if you disagree with me on that, you're not gonna like what I say next. Because now I'm gonna talk about one of the true critiques that people have of Mercedes that I just find to be laughable, and that is of her championship belts. Much has been made about Mercedes holding nearly 12 plus championship belts right now. Who knows what the number is as of the time that you're watching this, but Mercedes has won belts all across the world, from North America to Japan to Italy to Denmark. She has gone all over the world and is Ultimo Mone. She's the modern day Ultimo Dragon, holding all those championships up just like in the meme. And for Mercedes, I think what people don't have a lot of insight into is what this means for her and her mission statement when she came to AEW. When Mercedes came into AEW at Big Business 2024, she made a point to say that she was not simply there in AEW to wrestle. She was not simply there in AEW to have good matches, tell good stories, and prove to everyone that she's the best in the world, something that she has probably already done at that point, if we're being honest. She was there to kickstart a global women's revolution. And when we talk about the women's evolution in WWE, it was a very important time in the company, but the thing is, it was very much so isolated within the company. What Mercedes' goals were with this women's revolution around the globe was to put a spotlight on and help build up new stars all across the world. Stars like Stephanie Vaquer, stars like Persephone, stars like Toni Storm, all of whom are bigger for having been in the ring with Mercedes Mone. And one thing that you cannot tell me is that her holding all these championship belts will not have an impact. If your critique ends at, it's just not for me, it seems kind of hokey, I don't get it, that's fine, because again, wrestling is subjective. But if you genuinely want to sit there and tell me that Mercedes going to all these different territories across the world, winning these championships, drawing big houses for these companies, having these fans introduced to new stars that are on the card that she is on, and facing her and eventually losing those belts to the company's biggest stars, whether it's a year, 2 years down the line, whenever it is, eventually Mercedes needs to lose. If you're telling me that all of that is truly worthless, then I genuinely have to question your motivations in your logic. Because the way I look at it, that is what professional wrestling has always been about. Giving back. It has always been about fostering a bigger and better presence in the territories that you are in. And Mercedes is going and doing that globally. She does not need to go and wrestle in the weekends in Denmark. She does not need to go and wrestle on the weekends in Germany, in Poland, in Italy. None of that is necessary. She could be cashing that check, sitting at home in Florida or wherever the hell she lives, and just doing whatever the hell she wants. Instead, That mission statement that she set out, she took very seriously. And she's executing. Some people talk about a revolution, others put those words into action, and that is precisely what Mercedes Mone has done. And this brings me to another critique that people have is, well, who the hell does she put over? Who the hell has she made a bigger star? And as I've said before, the list of people who have been in the ring with Mercedes, who are bigger stars for having been in the ring with her and have been brought to another level because of her, is one that you could not even fit on a hand. In fact, you couldn't even fit it on two. Mercedes Mone, over the past couple of years, has gone out on a limb and wrestled virtually everyone there is to wrestle in AEW and help build up a lot of stars. You look at Harley Cameron right now as an example of someone who, before she was with Mercedes, she was kind of doing nothing on Rampage. And the second that she got into that spotlight with a star the caliber of Mercedes, and had Mercedes selling for her not just in the ring, but in these backstage segments that really showed Harley Cameron's ability on the mic, that's what giving back is all about. You look at the example that I had earlier between her and Stephanie Vacour, a match that at Forbidden Door 2024 led to Stephanie being signed just 9 days later. I think Stephanie is a fantastic talent and would have gotten to WWE or AEW on the main roster at any point in her career. It would not have happened as quickly, however, as it did if it wasn't for the fact that she was in the ring with Mercedes Mone. And you could say the same thing about other people like Sari. You could say the same thing about other people like Toni Storm, like Chris Statlander, the reigning AEW Women's World Champion. She helps build stars. She helps make them bigger. She helps create major moments. That is why when I hear all of these critiques, which again, in isolation, you could kind of understand, but when put behind the echo of, I just don't like her, makes me wonder, what the fuck do you like, Jim? I don't know. If your name is Jim and you do not agree with those views, I apologize, and shout out to you, Jim. Shout out to all the Jimmies, Jams, Jim Jams in the world, and shout out to all my channel members as well. Thank you guys so much for your support. Because of the support from channel members, we are able to put these videos out early and often and produce them at a rate that I was not able to before. And if you guys want to get access to exclusive videos early and often, be sure to join the channel membership for as little as $5 a month. You too can get access to all the exclusive goodies, perks, and whatnot that are available. Just hit that join button, and if you can't, all good. Just be sure to smash that thumbs up. It helps just as much. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm Big Ohm for Real Take Wrestling. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.